Welcome to Let's Talk Value Chain, a podcast where we explore the different activities, trends, topics, and components within value chains from manufacturing to impacts on supply chains to AI to blockchains.
Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Value Chain. Our today's guest is Richard Dale, the founder and CEO at Flowlens Manufacturing, who provide what he calls as mini ERP systems to help SMEs digitize and get more productive and efficient. So let's jump into the episode. So welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Value Chain. Today I have Rich Dale from Flowlens, and he'll be talking to us about his experience with his customers and the manufacturing industry, about the different opportunities and different problems and disruptions that we see with regards to value chains in the relevant industry. So Rich, welcome to the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks very much for having me. It's great to be here. So yeah, I'm CEO of Flowlens, which is a cloud-based MRP software system. We focus mainly on, as you said, SMEs. Most of our customers are manufacturers of some kind of equipment, machinery, or device, and we basically help them maximize their value with limited resources. So a lot of companies come to us whenever they've got just reached the sort of glass ceiling of productivity, with spreadsheets, manual systems, legacy systems. And Flowlens really allows them to bring all of the kind of operational aspects of their business into one place, and it then links through to Xero or QuickBooks to help them do their accounting. So whether it's their inventory, their MRP, their order book, customers, suppliers, and then after sales, these things all tend to be separated in different spreadsheets and different silos in small businesses, and they just get done because people are kind of operating by the seat of their pants, and not in a bad way. They're doing a good job, but that obviously has limitations. And if somebody gets hit by a bus or wins the lottery, a lot of information can walk out the door. So it's about creating that single version of the truth and bringing everyone into one system.
Yeah. So that sounds exciting, Rich. And so, you are dealing with a specific area of interest of mine, which is SMEs, and helping them digitize and, get that first step in the process to how they can scale and do better with technology, right? So could you share, in your view, what are the critical components of value chain for your customers that you see?
Well, it obviously depends on where you're coming from, but in terms of creating a quality finished product, it starts with the idea and the innovation and the ability to differentiate themselves in the market, and then the ability to convert sales profitably and the ability to deliver those. So being organized and having a standardized way of doing that, I suppose, is the overarching critical component of the value chain, because a small business can't afford to be second guessing itself.
Yeah.
I was interviewing one of our customers this morning for our own podcast, and simplicity is his key. He's grown his business from 2 people to 15 people in the last sort of 3.5 years, and having that understanding of your business process and knowing where value gets added, and also having an open conversation with the team about that, and people sort of talk about the spirit of continuous improvement, but if you have a team dynamic where it's okay to question how we work, then that the value chain will operate more efficiently, and you'll have happier customers.
Yeah, and it's obviously I think this is a learning area for all new businesses, big and small, now, on how they adapt these technologies, how they streamline their value chains from the suppliers to their customers, and the flow of data that keeps it all moving, right? And how they utilize that data to better make decisions and better understand their products and services itself. From your experiences, what are the common struggles that you see, or something that most of these SMEs face today?
Well, there's obviously things like the the skills gap, or the shrinking workforce. The 80% of the people in today's workforce, or sorry, in the workforce of 2030 are already in the workforce today.
Yeah.
There's some frightening stats about that, but really, again, that comes down to being able to operate efficiently and relying on systems. So I suppose, SMEs that come to us obviously have made the decision that they want to adopt an MRP system. They want to adopt better ways of working. That doesn't necessarily know that they mean, or they understand what that means. So it can take some time for businesses to adapt to the idea of working, in a standardized way, and in a joined up way. So bringing your people along on the journey with the digitization journey is a challenge in itself, and making sure that not everyone on the bus, to sort of misuse another metaphor, not everyone on the bus is in the right seat or necessarily should be on the bus. So from that point of view, the the management, the leadership of the business really have to step back and decide, where do we want to be, and how will systems and how will the sort of the right people in the right seats in the bus overcome the challenges that we will get to, because fundamentally most people have great products. The value is there in the finished product, but if they can't deliver that and support that profitably and in a timely manner, then they've got problems.
Yeah. And that's interesting. I mean, I think it's a common struggle, and support needs to come from top down, but then it's also enabling the bottom up engagement and approach to be able to adopt these technologies, to be able to
Yeah.
implement them correctly.
And that's why smaller businesses are lucky, because in most cases you can fit the whole team in one room, or one, at least one big meeting room, and you can get your process map on the wall, on the whiteboard, and you can engage people in improvement. So that's the beauty about working with small businesses. They may not have the capacity to do everything they'd like to do in one go,
Yeah.
but having that sort of constant iterative conversation about how we're working makes it a fun place to work. It's something that your customers will see, and ultimately it should improve things.
So, you're seeing so much technology disruption coming across, right? So with generative AI, with advanced in blockchain and other emerging technologies with IoT and so forth. So how do you see any of these major disruptors in manufacturing impacting the SMEs? And, what's their outlook in your opinion? Are they too for it? Are they still trying to figure it out, what it is? What's your general perception of this?
I think it's a funny one, because data, it sounds sort of so basic, and you mentioned it earlier, but the data, having data that you can trust itself is a disruptor for many manufacturers. I think many are just coming now to the point where they've got systems in place that are generating reliable data, and we see it all the time in terms of pardon me, different people given, or different departments in the business using the data in different ways to impact whether they can squeeze down their delivery times, whether they can get things through the shop floor quicker, whether they can minimize their stock. It's sort of, you sort of assume, well, everyone has data, but the data tends to be siloed, it tends to be duplicated, or there's versions of spreadsheets all over the place. We're lucky to be able to work with companies that have made the decision to take that barrier out of their business, but then it's a process of optimization. So we typically work with a company to get them up and running. We'll handhold them through that process, because we can see that it work. We can get them up and running quicker, but then we increasingly check in proactively every 6 months to optimize it, particularly if the business is growing, or they've just brought on new staff, or they've matured into the system.
Yeah.
So at the other end of the scale, when you look at things like AI, that people have a long way to go before they have something that a solid foundation, and the time and space that they can use to investigate how these other tools work. But if you're thinking even about automation, and robotics. I think that for a lot of smaller companies, that's where a big opportunity is. Whether it's just automating parts of the production process, quality checking, or even packing. There are steps that they can, or baby steps that they are now taking because the systems in place are, they don't have to stay up all night worrying about their order book or my stock levels, right? So I think like one other relevant point is, as you know, we've been awarded a lighthouse project for the Smart Manufacturing Data Hub, and it's kind of disruptive in the sense that they're creating a benchmarking platform, and no one's really ever done this before that I can see in a practical sense. You can sort of see there's measures about UK productivity and that kind of thing. But the project is really designed, in our case, to get at least 10 SME equipment device manufacturers sharing their data so they can see how they compare on sort of key metrics over the course of the project. So being able to understand where you are in that mix, I think in itself is quite disruptive, even though that's the sort of, it's the digital catapult made smarter world is bringing that to the market, which it should. It's great to see.
No, I think that's great. And I think you're right about, amongst all the emerging technologies that we see, the first ground truth is just getting data collected, which for a lot of SMEs is a starting point, and getting one source of that data, because any AI will only work off the data that you have, and the quality of data then impacts on how the other emerging technologies link into that as well. So when we talk about, FlowLens, do you want to share a bit more about, what are the key innovations that FlowLens has been doing over the years, and how it's addressing the challenges in the SME market?
Well, the current product has been around for about 10 years, and we started a sort of a version 2 project, which is now almost ready for initial customers. So we've learned a lot ourselves over the last 10 years in terms of the kind of customers we're best serving, how as I said earlier, how to help accelerate their digital transformation on the cultural side, less in terms of the technology side of things. So where we're going obviously is a lot more automation, using the computing power that's available today to really make it almost hopefully as foolproof. And that sounds wrong because we work with a lot of incredibly smart customers, but if the system does even more heavy lifting, particularly around planning, forecasting, stock and resourcing, then that leaves your best people doing what they're good at and not sort of trying to bend their brain around lead times and capacity and all that sort of good stuff. So from our point of view, our innovation is on the product side, helping you get in control of your stock, helping you plan your stock better, getting jobs out onto the shop floor and tracking those through. But also, like, just over those 10 years, we have really perfected a delivery mechanism that we're working with willing customers and teams that helps them get people's buy-in, understand that this isn't a stick to beat people with, and also then create almost like a roadmap. People get worried about products like ours. Like MRP software isn't like even like an email marketing tool. Email marketing is pretty self-explanatory. There's a lot of moving parts in our solution, and it takes a while for people to get their heads around it and for that change to be embedded. So having a partner there that assists with that, we've found has been really successful, and we think with the new innovations that we have with version 2 coming down the line, particularly whenever you look at supplier integrations and all sorts of stuff around data, where we don't have to manually input data from suppliers every time they change their prices or import spreadsheets, that kind of thing. We're looking at eradicating all of these important but busy work type jobs that people just won't have time for if they if they can't hire and grow their teams. Their systems are going to have to do the work for them. So really, that's where we are going in terms of our innovation, basically. So
one of the key topics that comes up when you talk about digitization in general, and the ERP systems, and especially for SMEs, is the skill gap as well.
what have you seen, in your opinion, with your customers? Do they have the skill sets to be able to work with a system like yours, or do they need the training in that, or do they need to recruit for that?
I think it depends on the business,
Yeah.
so you get, because we deal with a lot of engineering-led businesses, there's a lot of curiosity and sort of technical understanding there, so people aren't afraid of necessarily the systems, but they don't always realize all of the things that you can do with the systems. So I think, and that's why we've kind of gone down that kind of optimization route, where you get people up and running, and then deliver sort of bite-size training, over, could be years, basically, as the business evolves and matures into the systems. So I think obviously you can hire in talent, and smaller businesses that have no real need for production management or stock planning don't necessarily know what they're missing until they hit that glass ceiling that I talked about. And then that's the time to recruit somebody. So we've seen this several times where somebody has been recruited in from a slightly larger business. They've been used to using some sort of system for stock, order management, jobs, purchasing, MRP, and that they can bring that confidence to the team. And if they're the right mindset, they bring the kind of coaching change, because it's definitely still 80%, about the sort of people skills, and 20% about the technical skills, or the technology skills. And so it's a tricky one. I do believe that there are a lot of companies out there that, with a little bit more intensive mentoring, could be going on a lot further. So the kind of programs that Made Smarter are running with digital transformation are great, but I've seen where people invest in that sort of coaching and mentoring approach, and creating a vision of where they want to be, and using coaching to bring the team along, and create good habits where maybe unhelpful habits have been there before. So maybe we need a few more billions in the budget for that, if we
Absolutely.
want it to be truly
I mean, I
competitive.
agree. I think, manufacturing as a sector itself, should get more support than even it's getting right now. And, we've been in manufacturing, I've been in 10 years in manufacturing, and seen, once you get in and you understand the industry, there's so much innovation, so much great and cool stuff to actually be part of. It's a shame that not everybody knows that because of, how the career path works out. So, before we finish, do you have any parting thoughts for our listeners, something about your own podcast, and, how can they get in touch with you?
Cheers. Yeah, I mean, there's so many pieces of advice that I've been given in the podcast. So that our podcast is made to grow. It covers all sorts of topics. Most recently, like video marketing for manufacturers. We're going to introduce a few of our own customers' stories. So, as I mentioned, I was interviewing a customer this morning. So, yeah, check it out on Spotify and all other good podcasting platforms. And our website is flowlens.com. We offer, a free trial of the software. But really, what we would like to do is have a conversation with you to understand, can we help you? Are we the right fit? Where are you as a business? And really, I suppose that would take me on to, my piece of advice. So, if you're frustrated and you're thinking about digital transformation, the first thing you need to do is look at your own processes and figure out what you're going to transform. Digital tools aren't a silver bullet unless you know what your process is, where it can be improved, and that you've got buy-in from your team to do that improvement. And then you've got a roadmap, basically. So you don't have to do it all in one go. Yes, there are systems like ours that can cover a lot of bases, but even our system is modular. So but create that roadmap is the advice I would give. And if you don't know how to do that, there are plenty of people there, like ourselves, guys, that you can help people map out their processes.
Yeah, no, sounds great, and I'm sure that people will get benefit from this. So, Rich, thanks for coming on the show. It's lovely speaking to you and diving a bit more on the manufacturing and digitization topics of value chain. Hope you enjoyed this episode and found our discussion intriguing and exciting. If you want to connect with me or any of our guests, you can see our content and connect details in the summary of this episode. This podcast is sponsored by Value Chain. Value Chain is a leading B2B SaaS platform for intelligent collaboration, performance management, net zero supply chain identification, risk and resilience building, and a platform to help you manage your local and global supply chains.